Hello, I'm Tim Hans. I'm a sound editor. You may have seen me on the Nystagmus Network Facebook page, clutching an Emmy that I got for Game of Thrones. I was invited to do a little video just to explain a little bit about who I am and what I do, and in the hope that it will be useful to you if you have nystagmus or if you are the parent of a child with nystagmus. So you see me here in my studio, which is at home. I do all the editorial work for film and TV here. The recording side, when I have to work with actors, I do in London or other cities in proper big studios that are less chaotic. And this is just full of my junk at the moment. So I have congenital nystagmus. I was born with nystagmus. I have some cousins who have it. My brother has it, although he's a few years older than me, and his condition is actually negligible. He drives and wasn't aware that he had nystagmus until he had some eye tests done a few years ago when he had a different eye problem, and they discovered he had it. It's not really had any effect on him. I had my left eye was turned in when I was born. That was corrected, but they can't correct any of the other visual problems I have. So, in fact, these screens are so close to me at the moment. It drives other people crazy, but I'm literally on top of them. It's the only way I can read them. And mostly when I work in the studio with actors, I rely on my ears rather than my sight to know. So I'll have an earpiece on one where I can hear the original production audio, and then I can listen with this ear to what the actor's saying, and I can hear if it's sort of in time, and then have to listen to other things like the level they're delivering the line at, little things in intonation. I can tell very clearly with my hearing much better than my eyes. So I've come to trust my ears rather than my sight, and it's never let me down. So it's been quite useful for me. In fact, some people have said, well, it looks good to me, and I've said, no, it's not in sync, and they've played it back and I was right. So trust your ears. So that's kind of an explanation of what I do. So then what I thought I'd do is just give a little history and go back to my school days. I moved into my garden because it's a lovely day. So at school, I was very interested in the arts, music, drama. I played in a band, I learned to play guitar. That's interesting because when you look at nystagmus at guitar strings on the dark fretboard, I was okay at school. I was quite bright. Not the brightest by quite some distance, but, I did all right. I was better at the arts subjects than anything else. I really like drama, music, though I can't read music for obvious reasons. It just looks a mess. I had difficulty learning to read. In fact, I still read with one eye. If I look with my left eye, the left eye is not paying attention to the page, the right eye is doing the work. And I've found that I jump around on the page as well. So I'm a slow reader. I really am. In some vague sense, a little bit like dyslexia. And my inability to read was certainly treated in much the same way as they used to treat people with dyslexia. You're stupid because you can't do this. Anyway, while I was at school, I actually learned to drive. And I was doing really well until I came to take the test. And then I took the precaution of memorising all the cars' number plates outside the test centre, which was, I was very proud of. And I went in, there was a slight delay for the examiner to come out. And then when we came out and he pointed at a vehicle to say, could you read that registration? I realised that not only was that not one of the cars that had been there before, but none of the other cars that were parked there were the ones I'd memorised. So I failed. I couldn't even get in the car. They measured the distance, which was really embarrassing. And I had to try and read this plate at the specified distance. And I took one step forward and realised that the number 69 that I'd given them was actually 44. So if you have nystagmus, you'll understand just how frustrating that can be. Anyway, it's limited what I can do with my life. Driving to work or whatever. It's always been public transport, so that means living in a city. But with the internet developing the work that I do now. I can do from home, much of, which has been a great help. So I left school with 7 O-levels, 3 A-levels, and went off to do a art and design foundation course. And then from there went on to do fine art, a degree in fine art. I was very good at drawing. I was at school with a lot of kids who weren't, so I was kind of like my thing. I wasn't great at a lot of stuff, but drawing I was really good at. And then I got to a fine art course, and of the 32 people on the course, I was probably the least capable of drawing anything, it turned out. Anyway, over the period of 3 years, I got into photography, screen printing, video making, and then at the end of the course, I'd applied to the Royal College of Art to do a Master of Arts in film, and unbelievably, I was offered a place. So I then spent another 2 years at college where I made some films and I got into editing and camera work. I was very good with camera because I've spent my entire life with a frame around my eyes. But I wouldn't trust myself on focus, so I ended up in sound. I was actually offered a job by a friend who was a lecturer at the college at the time, and I did some work in BBC documentaries, firstly in picture and assisting. We all cut things on film back then, and then later into sound itself, where we now all work in a digital format. So I edit the production sound. That's the material I record on location, and during that process, some of it can't be used. You can hear things in the background, hear clatter and bang, and there's machinery over there. Imagine if this was a medieval environment. You obviously can't have it reversing beeps and people clattering dustbin lids. So we might have to re-record some of the dialogue. So that's where I come in. I go into a studio with the actor and I re-record dialogue with them for the films. I won't get into the process of that because it's long-winded and you probably need cocktail sticks under your eyes to follow it. But it does mean we've worked with a lot of famous people over the time. And for my work, I've worked on Mamma Mia, Les Miserables, and latterly on Game of Thrones for the entire seasons, actually, all 10 years of it. So, and I've worked with every single actor at some point from that show, sometimes more than once. And I've won 4 Emmys. Who knew? So how do I cope with my nystagmus? Well, I mean, I guess like most people who have it, you know, I can't see too well. And if we look down the end of the street there, there's a sign saying diversion, but I can't read that. I see a yellow blob with some black stuff on it, but that's about as good as I get until I'm much closer. So that's why number plates are a problem. And any writing, as a matter of fact, at a distance. But I managed to disguise it. I mean, nobody I work with really notices, apart from the screens being a bit closer to me, but nobody notices that my vision's not that great. I suppose the things that really matter is that on the rugby pitch, I've taken using a monocular so I can see what on earth's going on the other side of the pitch. I recognise people by the way they walk, really, or the way they dress, rather than their face. I can't see their face. Somebody drives past in a car and toots their horn at me. I can't see them. I just have to know whose car it is. And I guess the other thing is not recognising people on the street. There's a tendency for people to assume you're rude. You know, well, I walked past him, he didn't even acknowledge me. Well, I didn't see you. I mean, you could walk straight past me right now and I might not recognise you if you're on the other side of the road. So what kind of questions do you get asked? These are the ones I've had most of my life. How much can you see? Can't you get better glasses? So, are you long-sighted or are you short-sighted? One frustrating thing is not being able to drive. I mean, it does limit things for you. There's no doubt about it. City life, public transport makes a huge difference. I lived in London for 20 years. I could get anywhere. I could cycle. I could get a bus. There's always the tube or walk. Of course, one of the downsides of catching a bus is when the bus is coming, I can't read the number. Films with subtitles. Nightmare. Can't read them. I have to get so close to the screen so I can see what's being said that I miss what the action is. That is until one day my youngest son realised this and just started reading the subtitles for me. I mean, mainly it's when you want to film and a caption comes up and says, Paris, 1892. He'd go.
Paris, 1892. And I go, oh, great. Now I don't have to get nearer to see that. And he would read those things off to me so I knew what was going on. That's really helpful. But other people just kind of think it's weird. I managed to get my glasses thinned right down as well. When I was a kid, they were made out of glass rather than plastic. And oh boy, they were always down here, the end of my nose. And I've only got a little nose. But now, these are very lightweight. The lens is very thin. And what's really cool is I got clip-ons. Never been able to do that before. And the other thing with having a visual disability is it's kind of less obvious in some ways than perhaps a physical disability. I mean, you can't compare, really. It's apples and oranges and stuff. But I suppose what I've come to learn is that people see you with glasses and think, problem solved. So, reading things at a distance has always been a problem. And, I got used to asking people, what does that say? And can you read that? If you go into a restaurant and they have a big menu behind the counter, I can't read it. I can't see what it is. I need a leaflet I can pick up. They don't care for that. And the writing's so small. When I had children, my children, as they got older, they realised, and they would read the menu for me, or ask me what I fancied, and they'd look and see if it was there. That was helpful.
There were a few things I mentioned in the previous sections. One was that I taught myself to play guitar. It was very difficult. I do find looking at the fretboard really distracting. But I can play the guitar. I have played live, solo, and I also play in a band. We play local pubs, doing cover versions, and that's great fun. I also mentioned that about rugby. I actually coach rugby. I spent 12 years coaching rugby. My youngest son, Dan, wanted to learn. I went along as a parent. Next thing I know, I'm teaching the kids to play rugby, which I learned only at school. And then I got myself to a level 1 coaching certificate. I'm now still with the Colts, which is the under 17s and under 18s, although I mostly do first aid, which is something else I trained myself in. And lastly, I did a lot of acting at school. I was in a lot of plays, school plays, loved doing it. Did some stuff at the local amateur theatre as well. But then as time went on, got involved in work and various other things, and that sort of went away. But after years of working in film and television, I got a taste back for it, learned a lot from some of the actors, I guess, just watching them, and auditioned for a play at the local theatre, got a part, had that play put on before COVID, was going to do another one, but it was cancelled because of COVID. And now I've auditioned again, and we're going on stage in November. I'm very much looking forward to being an idiot on stage again. And that's pretty much it from me. I have covered most of the things I think that I've done. Not in great detail, but you get the idea. And I hope it's given you some encouragement to do the things that you want to do. Oh, and one last thing. All these things I do, I'm not the greatest at them. I'm certainly not the best. But I'm as good as I can be and the best I can be at these things. And I hope that you won't let your eye condition prevent you from being the best you can be at the things you enjoy doing too. Good luck.